From that ominous intro to the striking musical riff, almost any anime fan and beyond can identify the opening theme to Sailor Moon. An iconic intro for an iconic franchise, it has firmly established itself in public consciousness, and was so good they used it for 3/4 of the show's 200 episode run. While I'm sure all the boys who pretended to not be interested in this girly show had different things in mind, I think most people have probably heard its opening at least once, and I think there's good reason it is both so recognizable and universally beloved. Now, if you're looking for lyrical and visual commentary, apologies, but we're going to be focused all in on the music here. And for the sake of simplicity, we'll be focusing on that initial TV-sized Japanese opening theme performed by Dali. Now let's get right on into it. One of the most important things with any piece of music, but especially with an opening theme which is almost entirely predicated on it, is the concept of building expectations. Musical phrases, chord progressions, the whole 9 yards, these function and play off of expectations, choosing, hopefully wisely, to either deliver, prolong, or subvert. You want to create a satisfying musical experience, but just directly giving the listener what they think they want isn't particularly satisfying either. That sense of build-up and anticipation is at the heart of what makes most music engaging. In a similar, broader sense, opening themes, especially for this type of show, get you hyped for the episode to come, building up the expectation of the many magical adventures to come. Having the first 10 seconds of the opening beat essentially build up to the opening properly starting out right amplifies that anticipation even more. It sets a dark picture, alongside the literal dark picture that is the nighttime visuals, with the resonant church bell-like chimes paired with a dissonant ascension in what I'm assuming is the strings, though it's kinda hard to tell. There's a lot of tension because of all these contrasting microtonal differences that can create dissonance with each other. The shimmering vibraphone, the long reverberations of the bell, that aforementioned assumed string glissando, none of these really give you any sense of tonal home or unity, leaving your ear searching for anything to latch onto. Pair that with it utilizing a lot of tonal timbres which contextually have come to be associated with all things eerie, and this mysterious intro serves essentially to grab your attention with something unusual, set a unique scene, and build excitement for what's to come in those that are already anticipating it. This musical line is striking, building somewhat on the slightly creepy tone but giving us a tonal center and sense of unity. It's in unison, with all the instruments that are playing the same notes, clarity coming from the sharp, accented performance of the line. It also gives the listener's ear a second to adjust, with 2 beats of pause between the beginning and continuation of the line. If you look at the notes themselves, they suggest C minor strongly, with the E flat, A flat, and the leading tone B going into the C, the out of place note being the F sharp going into the G, but even that is related, suggesting the 5 of the tonic. Simplifying the bullshit, all the notes it hits are ones that eliminate musical ambiguity. It's also super striking because it jumps between all these half-note movements. In this one short phrase, there's already 2 tritones, which is an extremely dissonant interval, but because all the notes are played separately, it makes for something striking but not unsettling. In a lot of ways, it is a impressively logical evolution from the intro, but done so in a way that has a sense of surprise and change to it. The next 15 seconds set up the verse to follow with the vocal melody introduced in an abbreviated instrumental form, followed by it being presented proper in the full verse. There's a good reason it's so infectious. It sets up and repeats that overall musical sequence, and the structure of the verse itself utilizes a repetitive but effective rhythmic and melodic form. It has a 2-bar repetition contrasting syncopation with a firm establishment of the beat. Not to over-explain things, but syncopation is just where you feel the emphasis on an offbeat. This as opposed to this. So it sets up rhythmic intrigue and contrast, then gives a satisfying delivery. Interesting, but not overly intricate, which works very well for the style it's going for. It can be repeated with some small variations and not get stale, aided by the upbeat tempo and sharp delivery, giving a strong sense of confidently marching forward. It's both satisfying to follow and easy to sing along with. When the vocals come in, it really does give that sense of marching, with the drum hit punctuating the end of each phrase like a period, demanding your continual attention and engagement. It's the kind of thing that just makes you want to bop your head and join in. I also don't want to undersell what the additional elements to the instrumentation, all the little musical flourishes, do for the whole experience as well. This descending flute line, how it builds to the verse repeat. It's not a true repeat, but it's mostly the same excluding the lyrics and the resolution, and this 6th synth line underneath that repeated section which takes that sense of momentum and pumps it up even further, adding a bit of harmonic emphasis while filling it out with some more fast-paced notes. The next section serves as a really effective bit of contrast, moving from the forward-moving, accentuated character to a more legato and dramatic character with a longer melodic phrase. Each note is held and fills out the whole passage, as opposed to the shorter notes of the earlier section. The string section coming in here really amplifies that sense of grandeur, grounding it with that orchestral timbre. By slowing down, not in literal tempo, but in the way the section is written, it builds that tension, that anticipation, yet again for the final repetition to come of that main phrase. However, it is far from getting bogged down thanks to the sick-ass bass line in this section. Since there's now room for our attention to be divided a bit more without it feeling like there's too much going on at once, the bass can afford to do a bit more, compared to before where most of what it is doing is a repetition of one note with a slight extra movement in each new bar. Here the bass takes up that syncopation mantle, maintaining that sense of momentum even if it's not the most apparent character for this section. And then we have the final reprise, proclaiming Miracle Romance as triumphantly as ever. A separation from this musical phrase with a contrasting but connecting character making its return smooth and satisfying, that dramatic final chord giving a bit of zing to the conclusion. The 10th on that C minor chord gives it some nice jazzy spice, adds a lot of flavor to the ending. Sailor Moon's OP works by having a perfect mix of simplicity and complexity, crafting something memorable and catchy but with a distinct character. It's an absolute bop and I fucking love it. Though it doesn't take anything away from the excellence of this opening, and the composer Daria Kawashima definitely deserves some credit for their work here, it is worth noting the evident influence it takes from the 60s song Sayonara wa Densu no Ato ni. To the extent that even though there was no legal case raised, some royalties are being paid to the composer Hiroki Ogawa. And there's also some suspect similarities to the song Omoide no Koju Kurihama, an opening theme to the TBS show Nurse Station from only a year prior to Sailor Moon's premiere. It is also literally the exact same song as Yume wa Majorika Señorita, but that case is a bit different as it was written by the same composer and likely was retooled as a result of the pop idol duo it was written for being unsuccessful and disbanding after a brief period of activity. The story behind this OP is pretty wild, from it being performed by an at the time and now still unknown band Dali, whose relevance lasted about as long as it took me to say their name. Also, the composer Daria Kawashima, who was an already pretty notable singer, wrote the song under the alias Tetsuya Komuro, with their composition work only being acknowledged well afterwards. All the strange intricacies to the people that made the song happen are rather oddly convoluted in a pretty interesting manner, and there's a series of articles about it that I'll link below as they go deeper into it and are definitely worth a read. In closing, it's a jam. I love its function as an OP, and I also am really fond of how it's used within the show's soundtrack itself on multiple occasions in instrumental form. It's always cool when shows do that. It really creates a mental link between that song and the series, making it not just feel like it's that song that plays before a show, but a song that represents the show, encapsulating the memories and emotions of the series all into that tight 1 minute 20. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video and want to see more like it, consider liking and sharing the video around. Special thanks to all my patrons on screen now. It's been a while since I did any music analysis, so apologies if I'm a little rusty. Hopefully I can cover some more OPs and other music type stuff in the near future. Though it can be hard to find an OP that feels both relevant enough to cover, interesting enough to cover, and that I think I'll be able to at least somewhat do justice. But with that said, do let me know what OPs you'd be interested in seeing me cover. I do read all the comments, and if something really jumps out to me, there's a good chance I will do a video on it. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.